I stared at my phone, my hands trembling as I read the urgent notification from the hospital system. Emergency admission. Richard Smith. Severe stroke. ICU. Room 304. My father, the man who had spent 18 years of my life looking through me like I was invisible, was now lying in a hospital bed, and I was assigned as his primary care nurse. The universe had a twisted sense of humor. My shift supervisor approached me, clipboard in hand. Anya, I know this is unusual, but you're the best we have on the night shift. Can you handle this? I looked at her, my face perfectly composed. The years of swallowing pain, having taught me how to hide every emotion. Of course, I said. He's just another patient. But before I dive into what happened that night, before I tell you how I came face to face with the family that destroyed me, I need to take you back. Back to where it all started. Back to the day that changed everything. If you're here listening to this story, if you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if you've ever been the one who gave everything and got nothing in return, please hit that like button, subscribe to hear more stories like mine, and comment below with your own experiences because trust me, you're not alone. Now let me take you back to the beginning. I was 17 when my brother Liam fell down the stairs. Not just any fall. It happened right in the middle of my mother's elaborate dinner party, the one she had been planning for months to impress her book club friends and Dad's business associates. The crash echoed through our large colonial house, followed by Liam's scream, and then chaos erupted. I was in the kitchen, helping set up the dessert table when I heard the commotion. I dropped everything and ran to the foyer, my heart pounding. Liam was crumpled at the bottom of the staircase, his leg twisted at an unnatural angle, his face contorted in agony. But before I could even reach him, before I could ask if he was okay, my mother Eleanor whirled around to face me. "Kayla," she shrieked, using the name I had long since stopped responding to in my heart. "Where were you? Why weren't you watching him?" Her perfectly made-up face was twisted with fury and panic. The guests stood frozen in the dining room, champagne glasses suspended midair, watching our family drama unfold like a reality TV show. "Mom, I started. But she cut me off with a slash of her hand. "Just what?" "Just neglecting your brother like you always do," she turned to the guests, her voice taking on a martyred tone. "I'm so sorry. Everyone. My daughter was supposed to be keeping an eye on him. As if Liam, at 15, needed a babysitter. As if it was my job to shadow his every move." My father Richard rushed over, his face red with concern. "But not for me. Never for me." He bent down to Liam, his voice gentle in a way I had never heard directed at me. "It's okay. Son, we're going to get you to the hospital. You're going to be fine." I tried to approach, to help, to do something, anything. "Mom, let me." She shoved me back, hard enough that I stumbled. "Get out of the way, you're just making things worse. You always do." The words hit harder than her hands. In front of 30 people, in our grand foyer with its crystal chandelier and imported marble floors, I was dismissed, erased. The paramedics came. Liam was rushed to the hospital. The diagnosis was worse than we thought. Complex fracture, multiple breaks, requiring immediate surgery and months of recovery. When we got home at 3 in the morning, I thought maybe, finally, I could go to bed. I was exhausted, emotionally drained, and my own guilt was eating me alive even though logically I knew it wasn't my fault. But then Mom made her announcement. "Liam needs proper care. He needs space. Comfort. Kiet. Kayla. He's going to take your room." I blinked, certain I had misheard. "What?" "Your room is bigger, closer to the kitchen so I can bring him meals easily. And it has better light. Liam needs all of that for his recovery." She said it so matter-of-factly, as if she was discussing which brand of coffee to buy. "But Mom, I have finals next week. I need to study. I need my desk. My books. My space." Her eyes flashed with an anger that made me step back. "Study finals. Your brother just had major surgery and you're worried about studying." She moved closer, her voice dropping to a venomous whisper that somehow felt louder than shouting. "You are so selfish. Kayla, so incredibly selfish. I don't know what I did to deserve such an ungrateful daughter. Dad looked up from his laptop, barely registering the conversation. Anya, just do what your mother says. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. He had used my chosen name, but only because Mom had told him to occasionally, to make them look like supportive parents. Liam, even through his pain medication haze, there managed to chime in from where he was propped up on the couch. Yeah, Anya, don't be such a pain. It's not like your room is that great anyway. That night, I watched as they moved Liam into my room. My childhood room with its pale blue walls and the window seat where I used to read for hours. My safe space. They didn't just move him in. They transformed it. New bedding. A small refrigerator for his drinks. A television. Everything he could possibly need. Meanwhile, my things were shoved into garbage bags and dumped in the hallway. Where am I supposed to sleep? I asked quietly, fighting back tears. Mom barely looked at me as she fluffed Liam's pillows. Figure it out. There's a sleeping bag in the garage. Use the floor in the den or something. This is temporary. Temporary stretched into days. Then weeks. I slept on the cold hardwood floor of our den, wrapped in a thin sleeping bag that smelled like motor oil and dust. Every night, I could hear Liam laughing in my room, playing video games. Mom bringing him snacks and treats. I could hear her cooing over him, asking if he needed anything else. The sounds drifted through the walls like torture. I would wake up at 5 in the morning, my back aching, my neck stiff, and sneak into the bathroom before anyone else woke up. I would study in the dim light of the den, my textbooks spread across the coffee table, trying to keep my grades up while my family acted like I had ceased to exist. During this time, I was also working part-time at Marlene's Diner, a small family-owned restaurant downtown where I had picked up shifts to save money for college. Marlene was everything. My mother wasn't warm, supportive, interested in my life. She had noticed the dark circles under my eyes, the way I flinched when she asked about my family. Honey, you look exhausted, she said one afternoon as I refilled salt shakers. Is everything okay at home? I forced a smile. Everything's fine. Marlene, just tired from studying. She gave me a look that said she didn't believe me for a second, but she didn't push. Instead, she made me a sandwich and insisted I take a break. These small kindnesses kept me going. They reminded me that not everyone in the world was like my family. It was during one of my shifts, about 6 weeks after Liam's accident, that my own nightmare began. Marlene had asked me to help move some heavy boxes of supplies from the storage room. They had just gotten a delivery, and her usual delivery guy had thrown out his back. I didn't mind helping. Marlene had been nothing but kind to me. I was carrying a particularly heavy box, trying to navigate the narrow back steps of the diner, when my foot slipped on a patch of ice that had formed from the freezer's condensation. I went down hard, the box flying, my ankle twisting with a sickening crack that I heard before I felt the pain. The pain, when it came, was blinding. White-hot agony shot up my leg, and I screamed. Marlene came running, other staff members behind her. Someone called an ambulance. At the hospital, the diagnosis was devastating complex ankle fracture, requiring surgery and pins. I would be on crutches for months. Marlene drove me home that evening, my ankle in a temporary cast, crutches awkwardly propped beside me, pain medication, making everything fuzzy. She helped me to the door, her face creased with worry. Do you want me to come in with you, talk to your parents? She offered. I shook my head, already dreading what was coming. No, it's okay. Thank you for everything. Marlene. I hobbled inside, every movement sending fresh waves of pain through my leg. Mom was in the living room, flipping through a magazine. Dad was in his usual spot, glued to the television. Liam was in the family room, recovered enough now to be mobile, playing video games with the volume turned up loud. Mom, I said, my voice shaking from pain and exhaustion. I fell at work. I broke my ankle. They said I need surgery. She glanced up, her expression one of annoyance rather than concern. Kayla, honestly, can't you be more careful? Do you know how clumsy that makes you look? I stood there, balanced on crutches, my ankle throbbing, staring at her in disbelief. Mom, I need surgery. I can barely walk. Well, you'll figure it out. Don't expect us to wait on you hand and foot. We already have one invalid in this house. She turned the page of her magazine dismissively. Dad didn't even look away from the TV. Your mother's right. You're old enough to handle this yourself. Something inside me broke a little more that day. But I swallowed it down like I always did. I made my way painfully down the hallway toward the den where I had been sleeping, my sanctuary of sorts. But when I pushed open the door, I froze. There, curled up in the middle of my sleeping bag, was Max, Liam's golden retriever. The dog I was allergic to. The dog whose fur made my eyes swell and my throat close up. The dog was sprawled out, shedding all over my only bedding, looking perfectly content. Mom, I called out, hobbling back to the living room. Why is Max on my sleeping bag? She didn't even look up. Oh, Liam wanted him to have somewhere comfortable to sleep. Your area is closer to the heat vent. It's better for Max. I felt something inside me that I had been pushing down for years start to rise. But Mom, I'm allergic to Max. And I'm injured. I need somewhere to sleep. Then sleep somewhere else, she snapped, finally looking at me with those cold eyes that I had been trying to win approval from my entire life. Stop being so dramatic. Max needs a warm place more than you do. He's a living creature with needs. So am I. The words burst out of me before I could stop them. I'm your daughter. I broke my ankle. I'm in pain. I have nowhere to sleep. Mom stood up then, her magazine dropping to the floor. She walked over to me, and for a moment, I thought maybe, finally, she would show some maternal instinct. Instead, she looked at me with utter contempt. You want to know what your problem is? Kayla, you're always playing the victim. Always making everything about you. Your brother broke his leg, and you couldn't stop complaining about giving up your room. Now you hurt your ankle, and you want what sympathy special treatment. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a hiss. Let me tell you something. You're not special. You're not as important as you think you are. Max is more valuable to this family than you are. At least he brings joy. All you bring is complaints. Each word was a knife. Each sentence was a wound. But it was Dad who delivered the final blow. He finally turned away from his precious television and looked at me with irritation. Anya, stop being dramatic. You always do this. You always make yourself out to be some kind of victim. Just deal with it like an adult. Something in me snapped. Not broke. Snapped. Like a rope that had been fraying for years, finally giving way. I looked at my mother. At my father. At the home I had tried so hard to fit into, to be good enough for, to earn love from. And I realized, with sudden, crystal clear clarity, that I would never be enough. Not for them. They didn't want a daughter. They wanted a convenient scapegoat. Someone to blame. Someone to make them feel better about themselves. I adjusted my crutches, my entire body shaking. Not from pain anymore, but from something else. Something that felt like rage and grief and liberation all mixed together. You know what? My voice came out steady. Cold. You're right. I'm done being the victim. I'm done begging for scraps of affection from people who don't even see me as human. Mom actually laughed. Oh, here we go. Another tantrum. Where are you going to go? Kayla, you're 17. You have no money. No job. I have a job. I interrupted. I've been working at Marlene's diner for 2 years. Saving every penny while you spent money on Liam's new gaming system and Dad's golf membership. And you know what else I'm leaving? Tonight. The laughter died on Mom's face. Don't be ridiculous. You can't just leave. I was already moving toward the stairs, as fast as I could on crutches, ignoring the pain screaming through my ankle. Watch me. I grabbed my garbage bags of belongings. Everything I owned in the world stuffed into black plastic. I didn't care about the furniture, the childhood toys, any of it. I called a taxi on my cell phone, the one I paid for myself with my diner money. Mom followed me to the door, her voice rising. If you walk out that door, don't come back, you hear me? Don't you dare come back. I turned to look at her one last time, at her perfectly highlighted hair designer clothes, her manicured nails, at the woman who had given birth to me but had never really been my mother. I won't, I said simply. Liam appeared in the hallway, looking confused. Anya, where are you going? Away from here, I said. Take care of Max. He's clearly more important to this family than I ever was. The taxi arrived. The driver helped me load my bags while my family watched from the doorway. As we pulled away from that large colonial house with its perfectly manicured lawn and two-car garage, I didn't cry. I felt empty, hollowed out, but also strangely light. Like I had been carrying a weight my entire life and had finally set it down. The driver took me to a motel on the outskirts of town. A rundown place with flickering neon lights and questionable stains on the carpet. It was $40 a night, and I had exactly $217 to my name. I did the math in my head. 5 nights. Maybe 6 if I didn't eat much. That first night in the motel, lying on a bed that smelled like cigarettes and industrial cleaner. My ankle throbbing, despite the pain medication. I let myself cry. Not for the family I was leaving behind, but for the family I had always wanted and would never have. I cried for the little girl who had tried so hard to be good enough, smart enough, helpful enough. I cried for all the birthdays where Liam got parties and I got a card, for all the school events where they showed up for his games but missed my academic awards, for every time I had been invisible in my own home, but when the sun rose the next morning, streaming through the thin motel curtains, I was done crying. I called Marlene. Honey, her warm voice came through the phone. Concerned. How are you feeling? How's the ankle? Marlene, I said, my voice steady. I left home. I need to know if I can still work for you. I'll do anything. Dishes. Cleaning. Anything I can do on crutches. I need the money. There was a pause. Then, oh, sweetheart, where are you staying? I told her. Within an hour. She was at my motel room door with her husband Joseph. A kind man with gentle eyes who worked as a mechanic. They took one look at the motel, at me sitting on that dingy bed surrounded by garbage bags, and made a decision. You're coming home with us, Marlene said firmly. I can't impose, I started. But Joseph cut me off. Our daughter Mary just left for college. Her room is empty. You need a place to heal, to figure things out. End of discussion. I lived with Marlene and Joseph for 2 months. They refused to let me pay rent. Though I insisted on contributing what I could, they drove me to my surgery, waited with me, brought me home. Marlene's sister was a nurse and helped me through my recovery. They fed me, not just food but kindness, warmth, the kind of family love I had only seen in movies. During those months, while my ankle healed, something else healed too. My sense of self, my belief that I deserved better. Marlene encouraged me to finish high school, which I did, graduating with honors despite everything. She was the one who suggested I look into nursing programs. You have a caring heart. Anya, she told me one evening as we prepared dinner together. I was still on crutches but insisting on helping. Even after everything your family put you through, you still want to help people? That's special. I don't feel special. I admit it. I feel damaged. Damaged things can be repaired. Joseph said from where he sat reading the newspaper. Sometimes they come back stronger than before. I applied to nursing school. To my shock, I got in with a full scholarship based on my grades and financial need. Marlene and Joseph helped me move into a tiny studio apartment near the college. It wasn't much. Barely enough room for a bed and a desk. But it was mine. Nobody could take it from me. Nursing school was brutal. The hours were long. The studying intense, the clinical rotations exhausting. But I thrived. For the first time in my life, I was surrounded by people who valued hard work, compassion, and intelligence. My instructors praised my attention to detail, my empathy with patients, my quick thinking in emergencies. I still worked at the diner when I could, picking up weekend shifts. Marlene never pressured me, always understanding when I needed to focus on school. She became the mother I had always needed, the one who asked about my day, celebrated my achievements, wiped my tears when the stress became too much. During those 4 years, my birth family never contacted me. Not once. I turned 18, then 19, 20, 21. I graduated from nursing school at the top of my class. I got my first job at County General Hospital on the night shift. I moved to a better apartment, a one-bedroom with actual furniture. I bought myself. Piece by piece, I built a life. I built a life where I mattered, where I was valued, where people knew my name and respected my work. I made friends with other nurses, went to their weddings, celebrated their babies. I had Sunday dinners with Marlene and Joseph. I was happy. Not perfectly happy. Not healed from all the damage, but genuinely content in a way I had never been in that big colonial house with my picture-perfect family. 3 years after I walked out, I got my nursing license. 5 years after, I was promoted to senior nurse on the critical care unit. 7 years after, I bought my own car, a modest but reliable sedan. 8 years after, I moved into a small house with a yard where I planted flowers. I was 26 years old, and I had built a life from nothing. I rarely thought about my family anymore. Sometimes I would see a mother and daughter shopping together and feel a pang. Sometimes I would drive past my old neighborhood and feel the ghost of old pain. But mostly, I moved forward. I had learned to set boundaries, to value myself, to recognize toxic behavior, and walk away from it. And then came the night that brought it all full circle. The night I saw my father's name on the emergency admission board. I stood outside room 304, my hand on the door handle, taking slow, deep breaths. Through the small window, I could see machines, tubes, the still form of a man who had once been larger than life to me. My supervisor had offered to reassign the case, but I had declined. I needed to do this. Not for him, but for me. I pushed open the door and walked in, my white sneakers silent on the linoleum floor. My father lay in the bed, pale and unconscious, a breathing tube down his throat. The stroke had been severe. The left side of his face drooped. His chances weren't good according to the chart. I checked his vitals with practiced efficiency, noted his medications, adjusted the IV drip. I was professional, thorough, competent. I was a damn good nurse. And even for him, I would do my job well, not because he deserved it, but because I did, because I had become someone who took pride in her work, who treated every patient with dignity, even the ones who had shown her none. I was updating his chart when I heard the commotion outside. Raised voices, one of them achingly familiar. The door burst open, and there she was, Eleanor, my mother. She looked older, more worn than I remembered. Lines etched around her mouth, gray streaking through her highlighted hair. Behind her was Liam, 23 now, filled out but with the same entitled expression I remembered. They both stopped dead when they saw me. I straightened, clipboard in hand, my expression neutral. I had practiced this moment in my mind 1,000 times, but the reality was different, stranger, less emotional than I had imagined. Kayla Mom's voice cracked. "Is that you?" "It's Anya," I corrected automatically. "And yes." She rushed forward, and I took a step back on instinct. She stopped, seeming to realize the physical space I was creating. Her eyes were wild. "Despérate. You're a nurse here. You're taking care of your father," the words tumbled out. "I'm Nurse Thompson," I said coolly. "And yes, Richard Smith is one of my patients tonight." "Richard Smith," Liam repeated, looking confused. "You mean Dad?" "That's Dad." I looked at him directly for the first time in 8 years. He had grown up, but there was still that softness to him, that look of someone who had never truly struggled. "I'm aware of the patient's identity. I have access to all medical records." Mom moved closer, her hands reaching out as if to grab mine. I kept the clipboard between us like a shield. "Kayla, Anya, please. He's your father. He's very sick. We need you." Something dark and cold unfurled in my chest. "We need you." Not "I'm sorry." Not "we were wrong." Not "I missed you." Just "we need you." "Mrs. Smith," I said, deliberately formal. "I'm providing your husband with the same excellent care I provide all my patients. His condition is critical. The neurologist will be in tomorrow morning to discuss long-term prognosis and care plans. No, you don't understand, Mom said, and now there were tears in her eyes. Real or performed? I couldn't tell. You're his daughter. You have to help him. You have to make sure he gets the best care. I looked at her steadily. He is receiving the best care. From me and the entire critical care team. Now, visiting hours are over. You'll need to come back in the morning. But, visiting hours are over, I repeated. My tone brooking, no argument. It was the tone I used with difficult family members. The one that said I was professional and would not be swayed. Liam stepped forward, and I saw something in his face that looked like shame. Anya, please. We know we messed up. We know we were terrible to you. But he's our dad. Your dad. I felt nothing. That was the strangest part. I had imagined this moment would be full of anger, of pain, of vindication. But I felt nothing but a cold, distant sort of pity. You should have thought about that 8 years ago when I walked out with a broken ankle and garbage bags full of my belongings, I said quietly. You should have thought about it when you gave my room to Liam and made me sleep on the floor. You should have thought about it when you valued a dog more than your own daughter. Mom's face crumpled. We were wrong. I know we were wrong. I'm sorry. Please. Kyla, Anya. Please. He needs you. We need you. There it was again. Need. Never love. Never wanted. Just need. I'll be back to check on Mr. Smith in 2 hours, I said. The nurse's station can direct you to the waiting room if you choose to stay. Good night. I walked out of that room with my head high and my back straight. I heard Mom calling after me, but I didn't stop. I went to the nurse's station, updated the attending physician on my father's status, and continued with my other patients. Over the next week, I saw my family every day. They were always there during visiting hours, looking haggard and desperate. They tried to talk to me, to corner me, to appeal to some family loyalty they assumed still existed. I remained professional, distant, untouchable. The thing about becoming a nurse is that you learn to compartmentalize. You learn to see people as patients, to separate their medical needs from their personal history. I could check my father's vitals, adjust his medications, note his slow improvement, all without feeling anything personal. He was just another stroke victim, one of dozens I had cared for over the years. But my family's presence wore on me, not emotionally, but practically. They were always trying to pull me aside, to have just a quick word. Finally, after 2 weeks, when my father had been downgraded from critical to stable and was being moved to a regular recovery room, I agreed to meet with them. We met in a small conference room, the kind used for family meetings about end-of-life care. I arrived exactly on time, dressed in my scrubs, my hair pulled back in a professional bun. I had 15 minutes before my shift started. Mom, Dad's condition, and Liam sat on one side of the table. I sat on the other. The geography felt appropriate. Thank you for meeting with us. Mom started, her voice shaky. She looked so much older than I remembered. Tired. Worn down. You have 15 minutes, I said, checking my watch. Liam shifted uncomfortably. Anya, we wanted to talk about when Dad gets discharged. He's going to need round-the-clock care, rehab, assistance with daily activities, medication management. I waited. I knew where this was going. Mom leaned forward. We were hoping you could help us. Move back home for a while. Help take care of your father. We can't afford a full-time nurse. And your family. And you're right here. No, I said simply. The word hung in the air like a bomb. No, Mom repeated, as if she had misheard. No, I said again. I will not be moving back home. I will not be providing free nursing care. But he's your father. Liam burst out. How can you be so cold? I looked at him. I really looked at him, and saw the boy who had taken my room and complained when I protested, the teenager who had sided with our parents while I slept on the floor, the brother who had never once stood up for me. Let me tell you about Cold, I said, my voice level but hard. Cold is a mother telling her injured daughter that she's less valuable than a dog. Cold as parents who never came looking for their 17-year-old daughter after she left with nothing but garbage bags and a broken ankle. Cold is 8 years of silence. Not a phone call on my birthday. Not a card at Christmas. Nothing. So don't you dare tell me about cold. Mom was crying now, mascara running down her face. We were wrong. I was wrong. I was a terrible mother. I know that. But please. He's dying. The doctors say he might not have long, that even with therapy he'll never fully recover. Don't you have any forgiveness in your heart? I stood up. Here's what I have in my heart. Mom, I have self-respect. I have boundaries. I have a life I built from nothing, without any help from any of you. And I'm not going to set myself on fire to keep you warm. So that's it. Liam stood too, his face red. You're just going to let him suffer. He's not going to suffer. I said, he's receiving excellent medical care. When he's discharged, there are agencies that provide home health aides. There are programs for low-income families. There are options. I'm just not one of them. I moved toward the door, but Mom's voice stopped me. Please, I'm begging you. Name your price. Whatever you want. Whatever we can do to make this right. I turned back. Considering. You want to make this right, you can't. The time to make it right was 8 years ago. Or 10 years ago. Or my whole childhood. But since you asked, here's what I'll do. I'll recommend a good home health agency. I'll make sure Dad gets set up with proper outpatient therapy. I'll review his discharge plan professionally. His nurse. But that's it. That's all you get from me. That's not enough, Mom cried. He needs more. We need more. Then you should have thought about that when you had a daughter who would have done anything for your love and approval. I said quietly. The daughter you threw away doesn't exist anymore. I'm someone else now. Someone who knows her worth. I left that conference room and went to start my shift. I checked on my father one last time before his transfer to another unit, made sure his discharge paperwork was in order, and arranged for him to be assigned to another nurse going forward. 3 days later, he was discharged. I heard through the hospital grapevine that the family had to sell their house to afford live-in care, that they had moved to a small apartment across town, that Liam had to get a job. His first real job at 23. To help with expenses. I felt nothing about this. No satisfaction. No guilt. Nothing. It was simply information. As relevant to me as the weather in another state. 6 months later, I received a letter. It was from my mother, addressed to me at the hospital. I almost threw it away unopened. But curiosity won out. Inside were multiple pages, front and back, filled with her handwriting. She wrote about regret. About how she had realized too late what she had done. She wrote about how watching me walk away 8 years ago was the worst mistake of her life. But pride had kept her from reaching out. She wrote about how seeing me as a confident, successful nurse had broken something inside her, made her realize what she had thrown away. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She didn't ask me to come back. She just apologized. Over and over. In different ways. She told me that I had deserved better. That I had always deserved better. That she had failed me. In every way a mother could fail. A daughter. At the end, she wrote, I don't expect you to respond. I don't expect your forgiveness. I just needed you to know that you were right. About everything. You were always enough. More than enough. You were the strong one. The brave one. The one who became everything we could never be. I'm proud of you. Even though I have no right to be. You're the daughter I never deserved. I read the letter 3 times. Then I folded it carefully and put it in a drawer. I didn't throw it away. But I didn't respond either. Some wounds heal, but they leave scars. Some relationships, once broken, can never truly be repaired. And that's okay. The truth is, I didn't need their approval anymore. I didn't need their love or their validation. I had built a life filled with people who valued me, who celebrated my successes, who showed up for me. Marlene and Joseph came to my nursing graduation. They were at my housewarming party. They knew my favorite coffee order and called me on my birthday and told me they were proud of me. That's what family is supposed to be. Not the people you're born to, but the people who choose you and keep choosing you every single day. A year after my father's stroke, I was nominated for Nurse of the Year at County General. It was a huge honor, one that came with a ceremony and a plaque, and a small cash prize. On the night of the ceremony, I wore a dress I bought myself, drove in my car that I paid for, and sat at a table with Marlene, Joseph, and some of my closest colleagues. When my name was called, I walked up to that podium with my head high. I looked out at the crowd of medical professionals, families, and supporters, and I gave a speech about resilience, about the importance of compassion, about how sometimes the family you build is stronger than the family you're born into. I thanked Marlene and Joseph by name, telling the audience how they had taken in a broken girl and helped her become a woman who could heal others. I saw them crying in the audience, tears of joy and pride. I didn't mention my birth family. They weren't part of my story anymore, except as a prologue. A chapter I had closed. After the ceremony, as I stood holding my plaque and accepting congratulations, I saw them. My mother, my father in a wheelchair, and Liam standing in the back of the hall. They must have seen the announcement in the hospital newsletter. They stood there, partially hidden behind a pillar, watching. My father looked so different from the man I remembered. Smaller, frailer, one side of his face still drooping from the stroke. My mother looked worn down by life in a way that expensive clothes and good hair could no longer hide. And Liam looked uncomfortable, out of place in this world where people earned their recognition through hard work and dedication. For a moment, our eyes met across the crowded hall. My mother raised her hand slightly. A small wave, a gesture that could have meant anything. Hello. I'm sorry. I'm proud of you. Goodbye. I didn't wave back. I didn't acknowledge them at all. I simply turned back to the people who had come to celebrate with me, to the people who had earned their place in my life. I heard Marlene's laugh, felt Joseph's proud hand on my shoulder, listened to my colleagues share stories about our work together. When I looked back toward the pillar a few minutes later, they were gone, like ghosts, like a part of my past that no longer had the power to haunt me. That night, back in my small house with its garden and its peace, I sat on my couch with a cup of tea and looked at the plaque. Nurse of the Year, Anya Thompson, for excellence in patient care, compassion, and dedication to the healing profession. I had done it. I had taken the broken pieces of that 17-year-old girl sleeping on a cold floor and built something beautiful, something meaningful, something mine. The next day at work, I was assigned a new patient, another stroke victim, another family in crisis. I walked into that room with the same professionalism, the same compassion, the same dedication I brought to every patient. Because that's who I had become, not in spite of my past, but because of it. I understood what it felt like to be forgotten, dismissed, treated as less than human. And because I understood it, I made sure no patient of mine ever felt that way. Every patient got my full attention, my respect, my best care. It didn't matter if they were rich or poor, kind or difficult, alone or surrounded by family. They all deserved dignity. They all mattered. And in helping them heal, I continued to heal myself. 2 years later, my father passed away. I got the notification through the hospital's administrative system before anyone thought to call me. He had been readmitted for complications, assigned to a different floor, treated by doctors who had no idea of our history. I didn't attend the funeral. I sent no flowers, no card, no acknowledgement. Some people thought that was cruel. One of my colleagues, who knew pieces of my story, gently suggested that I might regret it later. Maybe. I told her. But I don't think so. Some debts can't be repaid. And some relationships can't be resurrected. And that's okay. I'm at peace with my choices. And I was. I truly was. My mother sent another letter after the funeral. Shorter this time. She wrote that she understood why I hadn't come. She wrote that my father had, in his final days when he could barely speak, said my name. Just once. She didn't know if it was apology or regret or just confusion. She didn't ask me to forgive him or her. She just thought I should know. I appreciated the information in a distant, academic way. Like hearing about a stranger's death, I felt sad in the general sense that any death is sad. But I didn't grieve. How do you grieve someone who was never really there for you? How do you mourn a relationship that never truly existed? Instead, I planted a tree in my garden. A Japanese maple. Beautiful and strong. With leaves that turned brilliant red in the fall. I didn't plant it for him. I planted it for me. For the girl I had been. For the woman I had become. For the future I was still building. 3 years after my father's death, I was promoted to nursing supervisor. 5 years after, I bought a bigger house. 7 years after, I met someone. A teacher named Marcus, who was kind and patient and who loved the way I cared for others. We married in a small ceremony with Marlene and Joseph as witnesses, surrounded by the family we had chosen. I never heard from my mother or Liam again after that last letter. I assumed they moved on with their lives, just as I had moved on with mine. Sometimes I wondered about them in passing, the way you might wonder about people you used to know in high school, but they weren't part of my present or my future. They were simply part of what had shaped me, the fire that had forged me into steel. On my 35th birthday, Marcus threw me a surprise party. Our house was filled with friends, colleagues, neighbors. Marlene and Joseph were there, older now but still vibrant. Still the parents I had chosen. The air was full of laughter and love, and the sound of people who genuinely cared about each other. As I stood in my kitchen, surrounded by all this warmth, I thought about that 17-year-old girl on the cold floor. I thought about how she had believed she was worthless because the people who were supposed to love her had treated her that way. I thought about how she had found the courage to walk away from that lie and discover her own truth. And I was grateful to her. Grateful that she had been strong enough to leave. Grateful that she had refused to accept crumbs when she deserved a feast. Grateful that she had known, somehow, that there was something better waiting for her if she was brave enough to reach for it. That night, after everyone had gone home and Marcus had fallen asleep, I sat in my garden under the stars. The Japanese maple rustled in the breeze, its leaves catching the moonlight. And I realized something profound. I had won, not because my family suffered or because I had gotten revenge, not because they had apologized or because they had realized what they lost. I had won because I was happy. Genuinely, completely, undeniably happy. I had won because I had refused to let their treatment of me define my worth. I had won because I had chosen to be better than the pain they caused. I had won because I had loved myself enough to walk away. And in walking away, I had walked toward everything I deserved. The truth about toxic families, about people who diminish you and dismiss you and treat you as less than, is that you don't need their validation to move forward. You don't need their apology to heal. You don't need their love to be worthy of love. You just need to believe in yourself enough to take that first step away from them and toward yourself. And then another step, and another, until one day you look back and realize you've traveled so far that they can't even see you anymore. And more importantly, you realize you don't need them to. I learned that I was always enough. I was enough when I was that little girl trying to earn her parents' love. I was enough when I was the teenager sleeping on the floor. I was enough when I was the young woman walking out with garbage bags and a broken ankle. And I was enough now. As a wife, a nurse, a supervisor, a friend, a chosen daughter. I was always enough. They just weren't capable of seeing it. But I am. And that's what matters. So here's what I want you to take from my story. If you're in a toxic situation, if you're being treated as less than, if you're sacrificing yourself for people who don't appreciate it, know this: you don't have to stay. You don't have to keep trying to earn love from people who aren't capable of giving it. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. You are allowed to walk away. You are allowed to choose yourself. You are allowed to build a life with people who see your value, who celebrate your existence, who show up for you the way you show up for them. It won't be easy. It will be scary and hard and sometimes lonely. But on the other side of that fear is freedom. On the other side of that pain is peace. On the other side of that door is a life where you matter, where you're valued, where you're loved for exactly who you are. You are enough. You have always been enough. And you deserve so much better than settling for people who can't see that. Walk away from the people who make you feel small. Walk toward the people who help you grow. Walk toward yourself, toward the person you're meant to become when you're not being diminished by others. And one day, you'll stand in your own garden, under your own stars, in a life you built with your own hands, surrounded by love, you earned by being yourself. And you'll realize that walking away was the best thing you ever did. Not because of what you left behind, but because of what you walked toward. The years continued to unfold, each one adding new layers to the life I had built. At 40, I became the director of nursing at County General, overseeing a team of over 100 nurses. The scared girl who once slept on a cold floor had become a leader. A mentor? Someone that young nurses looked up to and sought advice from. I remember one particular afternoon when a young nursing student came to my office. Her name was Jamie, and she reminded me so much of my younger self. She sat across from my desk, her hands twisting nervously in her lap, her eyes red from crying. "I don't know if I can do this," she whispered. "My family says nursing is beneath me. They wanted me to be a doctor. They say I'm wasting my potential, that I'm settling for less. My mom won't even come to my graduation next month." I looked at this young woman, and I saw myself at 17. I saw the hunger for approval, the pain of parental rejection, the question that haunted me for so many years. Am I enough? "Can I tell you something?" I said gently. "The people who truly love you will celebrate your choices, not diminish them. If your family can't see the value in what you're doing, the incredible impact you'll have on people's lives, the strength it takes to care for others at their most vulnerable, then that's their limitation, not yours." She looked up at me, tears spilling over. "But they're my family." "I know," I said, "and that makes it hurt more. But family isn't just about blood. It's about who shows up for you, who celebrates your victories, who holds you when you fall, who sees you, really sees you, and loves what they see." I paused, thinking about Marlene and Joseph, about Marcus, about the life I had built. Sometimes the family we choose loves us better than the family we're born into, and that's okay. Jamie graduated 2 months later. I attended her graduation ceremony, sitting in the audience with a bouquet of flowers. Her parents didn't come, but her best friend did, and her girlfriend, and 3 of her nursing instructors who believed in her. When she walked across that stage, we all stood and cheered, and I saw her face light up with joy, not dimmed by the absence of people who couldn't appreciate her, but brightened by the presence of those who could. After the ceremony, she hugged me tight. "Thank you," she whispered, "for showing me it's possible, for showing me I don't need their approval to be proud of myself." "You never did," I told her. "You were always enough." As I drove home that evening, I thought about all the people I had encountered over the years who were struggling with similar situations. The nurse whose husband belittled her career, the medical student whose father wanted him to take over the family business instead, the respiratory therapist whose siblings called her selfish for moving away from their toxic family dynamic. Each of them taught me something important. My story wasn't unique. The pain of being undervalued, dismissed, or treated as less than by people who should love you unconditionally was a wound that so many people carried. And yet, each of them also taught me that healing was possible, that choosing yourself wasn't selfish, that walking away from toxicity was an act of self-love, not betrayal. When I got home that night, Marcus was in the kitchen making dinner. The smell of garlic and herbs filled the house. Our dog, a rescue named Luna, greeted me at the door with enthusiastic tail wags. This was home, this warmth, this peace, this love that didn't demand. I diminished myself to deserve it. "How was the graduation?" Marcus asked, pulling me into a hug. "Beautiful," I said. "Hopeful," he smiled. "Like you." We ate dinner on our back patio, watching the sun set behind the Japanese maple. The tree had grown tall and strong over the years, its branches reaching toward the sky, its roots deep in the earth. It was a survivor, like me, thriving, not in spite of harsh conditions, but because it had found the right soil, the right environment to grow. "I've been thinking," I said to Marcus as we cleared the dishes, "about writing a book, about my story, but also about the stories of others like me. People who chose themselves, people who walked away from toxicity and built something beautiful." He stopped, dish in hand, and looked at me with that expression that made me fall in love with him. Pride mixed with encouragement. "I think that's a wonderful idea. The world needs more stories about people who refuse to be defined by their trauma, Who chose healing over bitterness? Over the next 2 years, I wrote that book. I interviewed dozens of people, each with their own story of choosing themselves over toxic relationships. I wrote about the nurse who left her emotionally abusive husband, the teacher who cut ties with her narcissistic mother, the engineer who walked away from a family business that treated him like property rather than a person, the artist whose parents said her dreams were worthless, and who pursued them anyway. Each story was different, but the core was the same: the moment of awakening when you realize you deserve better, the terrifying decision to choose yourself, the difficult journey of building a new life, and the profound peace that comes from living authentically. Surrounded by people who value you, I included my own story. Every painful detail. The cold floor, the broken ankle, the dog that mattered more than I did, the night I walked away, the years of building myself back up, the moment I saw my father in that hospital bed and felt nothing but professional detachment, the choice to forgive not them, but myself, forever believing I wasn't enough. The book was published on a cold Tuesday in November. I didn't expect much. Maybe a few copies sold. Maybe it would help 1 or 2 people. But within a month, it had become a bestseller. Within 6 months, I was receiving hundreds of emails a week from people sharing their own stories. "Your book saved my life." One woman wrote, "I was planning to go back to my abusive ex because I thought I owed him another chance. Your story reminded me that I don't owe anyone my suffering. I'm choosing myself instead." I read your chapter about the dog. A man wrote, "And I cried because my parents did the same thing. They got a new puppy and gave it my room while I was away at college. They never even told me. When I came home for Christmas, my bed was gone. I thought I was crazy for being hurt by it. Thank you for validating that pain." I'm 17. A teenager wrote, "Just like you were when you left. I'm scared, but I'm planning to leave too. Your story gave me hope that there's life after this, that I can be happy. Thank you." Each email broke my heart and healed it simultaneously. I realized that sharing my story, being vulnerable about my pain and my journey, had created a ripple effect. People were choosing themselves because I had chosen myself. People were walking away from toxicity because I had shown them it was possible. People were building new lives because they saw that I had built one. I started a nonprofit organization called Chosen Family, dedicated to helping young adults who had to leave toxic home situations. We provided temporary housing, job training, therapy, and most importantly, community. We created the support system that so many people like me never had. The safety net that caught you when you took that terrifying leap away from toxicity. Marlene and Joseph became deeply involved in the organization. Despite being in their 70s now, they opened their home to young people who needed a place to stay. Just as they had opened it to me all those years ago, they had saved me. And now, they were helping me save others. On the 5-year anniversary of the nonprofit, we held a gala fundraiser. The ballroom was filled with donors, supporters, and most importantly, the young people we had helped. I stood at the podium, looking out at faces that reflected my own journey. Some were still healing, still raw from fresh wounds. Others were thriving, working their dream jobs. Married, happy, whole. 5 years ago, I began. I thought my story was about revenge, about showing my family what they had lost, about proving them wrong. I paused, letting the weight of those words settle, but I was wrong. My story was never about them. It was about me, about choosing myself, about refusing to let someone else's inability to love me define my worth. I looked over at Marcus, sitting at a front table with Marlene and Joseph. They were my family, the one I chose, the one that chose me back. This organization exists because I learned something crucial. You don't need permission to value yourself. You don't need validation from people who hurt you. You don't need closure from people who can't give it. You just need the courage to walk away and the patience to build something new. The room was silent. Hundreds of people hanging on every word. To every person in this room who has ever felt invisible, undervalued, or unloved by the people who should have loved you most, I see you. Your pain is real. Your hurt is valid. And your decision to choose yourself, to walk away, to demand better, is not selfish. It's survival. It's self-love. It's the bravest thing you'll ever do." The applause was thunderous. People stood, many crying, all of them understanding the weight of what I was saying because they had lived it themselves. After the gala, as Marcus and I drove home through the city streets, I felt a profound sense of completion. Not because my story was over, but because I had transformed my pain into purpose. The girl who had been thrown away had become a woman who caught others when they were thrown away. The daughter who had been told she was worthless had become a voice telling others they were invaluable. At 50 years old, I received a letter. I knew the handwriting immediately, even though I hadn't seen it in nearly 15 years. My mother. I almost threw it away without opening it. But something made me pause. The letter was short this time. No excuses. No lengthy apologies. Just a few simple sentences. "I read your book. I saw you on the news talking about your organization. I'm dying. Anya. Cancer. I don't expect you to care. And I'm not asking you to come. I just wanted you to know that watching you from afar these past years has been my greatest joy and my deepest regret. Joy, because you became everything I knew you could be. Regret, because I didn't get to be part of it. You were always enough. I just couldn't see it until it was too late. I'm proud of you. I love you. I'm sorry. Mom." I read the letter 3 times. I felt sadness, but not for what could have been. I had stopped mourning that ghost years ago. I felt sadness for her. For a woman who had realized too late the treasure she had discarded. But I also felt peace. She had finally said the words I had needed to hear as a child. You were always enough. I didn't respond to the letter. I didn't visit her. Some people might judge me for that. But I had learned years ago that I didn't owe anyone access to my peace. I had forgiven her in my own way, by refusing to carry her mistakes as my burden. But forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation. It doesn't require giving someone another chance to hurt you. 3 months later, I got a call from Liam. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. "Anya." His voice was older. "Tired. Mom passed away yesterday. I thought you should know. Thank you for telling me." I said simply. There was a long pause. "She talked about you a lot at the end. About how proud she was. About how she wished she could go back and do everything differently." "Liam," I said gently but firmly, "I'm genuinely sorry for your loss. But that's your grief to carry, not mine. I grieved the mother I needed a long time ago. I'm at peace with my choices." Another pause. "I know. I just wanted to tell you that I'm sorry too. For everything. I was a selfish kid. And you deserved better. You deserved so much better." "I appreciate that," I said, and I did. Not because it changed anything, but because it showed he had grown. "I hope you're doing well, Liam. I really do. But I'm not looking to rebuild what we had. I've built something better." "I know," he said quietly. "I can see that. Your work. Your life. It's incredible. You're incredible. I'm proud to be able to say you're my sister. Even if I don't deserve to." We talked for a few more minutes. Civil and distant. When I hung up, Marcus looked at me questioningly. "My mother died," I said. "How do you feel?" he asked. I thought about it. Really examined my emotions. Sad for the relationship we never had, but grateful for the life I built without her. Grateful that I didn't wait for her to change. That I didn't sacrifice my happiness hoping she'd suddenly become who I needed. "I feel free." He pulled me close, and I let myself be held. Not because I was falling apart, but because I had someone who would catch me if I did. That was the difference. That was everything. Now, at 52, I stand in my garden on a Sunday morning. The Japanese maple is massive now, its branches providing shade for the bench where I sit with my coffee. Marcus is inside making breakfast. Luna is chasing butterflies through the flower beds. My phone buzzes with messages from the young people in our program, sharing their victories, their struggles, their growth. I think about that 17-year-old girl with garbage bags and a broken ankle, standing on a dark street not knowing where she would sleep that night. If I could go back and tell her anything, I would say this. It's going to hurt. It's going to be hard. There will be nights when you cry yourself to sleep and mornings when you wonder if you made the right choice. There will be moments when you doubt yourself, when you feel guilty, When you consider going back just to make the pain stop, don't. Keep walking. Keep choosing yourself. Keep building your life one small choice at a time. Because I'm standing here now, in a future you can't even imagine. And I'm telling you it was worth it. Every painful step, every lonely night, every moment of doubt. It was all worth it. You're going to meet people who see you, really see you, who celebrate you, who love you not for what you can do for them, but for who you are. You're going to build a career that matters. You're going to help people. You're going to stand on stages and tell your story and watch it change lives. You're going to fall in love with someone who treats you like the gift you are. You're going to be happy. Really. Truly. Deeply happy in a way you don't even understand is possible right now. And here's the most important part. You're going to realize that you were always enough. The love you were searching for was inside you all along. You just needed to get away from people who made you doubt it. So keep walking. Brave girl. Keep choosing yourself. I'm waiting for you here in the future. And I promise you, it's beautiful. That's my story. That's my truth. That's the life I built from ashes and garbage bags and broken bones and broken hearts. And if you're listening to this, if you're in your own version of that cold floor or that dismissive comment or that moment when someone makes you feel small, I want you to know something. You deserve better. You don't have to earn love. You don't have to prove your worth. You don't have to set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. You're allowed to leave. You're allowed to choose yourself. You're allowed to build a life where you're valued, celebrated, loved for exactly who you are. It won't be easy, but I promise you, it will be worth it. So here's what I want to know. What's your story? What are you tolerating that you shouldn't? What would your life look like if you had the courage to choose yourself? What's keeping you in a situation that diminishes you? And what would it take to walk away? Share your story in the comments below. Let's build a community of people who chose themselves, who walked away from toxicity, who refused to accept less than they deserved. Let's be each other's chosen family. And if this story resonated with you, if it made you think, if it gave you even a spark of courage to make a change in your own life, please hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel so you don't miss more stories about resilience, healing, and building a life worth living. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Your support helps us reach more people who need to know they're not alone. Because here's the truth I learned. After all these years, you are not alone in this. Whatever you're going through, whatever pain you're carrying, whatever toxic situation you're trying to survive, there are thousands of people who understand, who have walked this path, who have come out the other side stronger, wiser, and finally free. You're enough. You've always been enough. You were enough when they couldn't see it. You're enough now. And you'll be enough tomorrow when you make the choice to walk toward yourself and away from anyone who can't appreciate you. The life you deserve is waiting. The only question is, are you brave enough to reach for it? I hope you are. I believe you are. And I'll be here, cheering you on every step of the way. Now go. Go build your life. Go choose yourself. Go become everything you were always meant to be. You've got this. Y promise.